Hi everyone. As you must be knowing, DeepSeek has been making some trends on the internet, so much so that it has broken the US stock market as well. And the most important part about the model is the research paper that the team has published, stating that simple reinforcement learning can also be used for training LLMs. And this has now made reinforcement learning back into the picture. People were not using it that frequently, but now everyone has interest in reinforcement learning again. But one question that you might be hearing and you might be having yourself is that even LLMs coming from OpenAI or from Meta also uses some sort of reinforcement learning. You might be hearing the term RLHF a lot, that is reinforcement learning with human feedback. So how is these two types of reinforcement learning different from each other, and why the DeepSeek's simple reinforcement learning using GRPO algorithm takes an edge over RLHF? So let's get started. So in this particular tutorial, I will be telling you the difference between the two and which one should you prefer. So before we jump on to anything, let's first of all understand how does RLHF works, that is used for LLMs in OpenAI and by other LLMs as well. So just before DeepSeek, all the other LLMs were trained using RLHF. So it's quite a simple method where you have a human involved in the rewarding phase. So basically, if you can read here, initial phase, the process begins with selecting a pre-trained model, human feedback. After the initial model is trained, human evaluators assess its performance using various metrics. So humans are there, they look at the results of the model and then rate it out. The AI system then uses this feedback to create a reward system. So in case of a simple reinforcement learning method, what happens is the reward system is usually rule based. But in case of RLHF, this reward system is by human being. The feedback is given by human, and depending upon that, the reward is given to the model. Now this will lead to a very high quality data and a very high quality training, but at the cost of a huge cost, because engaging human being for any sort of a training process is very costly. Rewarding model, the separate model called as the reward model, is trained using the human feedback. Iterative improvement. RLHF is an ongoing process where the model learns from human responses and feedback. So basically, I'm trying to just wrap up RLHF. I've already covered it in quite some detail in my previous videos, just giving you a brief of what is RLHF. Talking about its benefits, it is particularly beneficial for improving the relevancy and accuracy as you have involved human being, hence the quality of the output is great. But certain problems are there with RLHF. One is the cost of gathering the human feedback, right? Because for humans to give feedback, it's always a little time consuming also and very costly also. But still, it's one of the most vital methods of training a generative AI model. Now coming to the GRPO algorithm, that is simpler RL for DeepSeek-R1. I have already covered the algorithm multiple times, the GRPO reinforcement learning algorithm, in my previous videos. You can check that out. In this case, the reward system is a rule-based system and it doesn't involve any human being. Right, so this is the major difference between the two, where a human is involved in case of RLHF, while in case of simple RL, that is the GRPO algorithm, there is no human involved. Now let's try to understand the difference between the two algorithms at some detail. So talking about the goal, in case of RLHF, the primary goal is to align the model with human preferences. Right, that is why human is giving a feedback. While in case of a simpler RL, that is DeepSeek model, the focus is on optimizing for task-specific metrics. This means the model is trained to perform well on some tasks to maximize performance. It is not usually with human preferences. Talking about the scope, RLHF, the approach is broad and general purpose, aiming for alignment across wide range of applications. While in case of DeepSeek R1, the scope is narrow and task specific. Talking about complexity, RLHF is a very complex method requiring human feedback, reward modeling, etc. While in case of DeepSeek, the simpler RL method used is complexity wise quite simple and utilizes lightweight task focused reinforcement learning. So it is not as complex as OpenAI's RLHF, and that is why, if you must be knowing, why did the US stock market broke out, because they came to a realization that LLMs can be trained on a very low cost as well, because if RLHF is not getting involved, you don't require human feedback, and it is not that complex also using simpler RL. Resource requirement, as mentioned, the resource requirements are high as the process is computationally expensive for RLHF. But in case of simpler RL, The approach is low in resource requirements, making it more efficient. And this is where the DeepSeek-R1 broke the internet. This was the only line. They are using lesser number of resources. Talking about use cases, it is a general purpose AI and used for models like ChatGPT, Meta, all the other models before DeepSeek were using RLHF in some bandwidth or other. While simpler RL, the DeepSeek R1 model, the use case is industry specific applications where the model is tailored to perform optimally in particular domains. Concluding, if you would have understood, OpenAI's RLHF is a complex, resource intensive approach, right? But it is of very high quality and it makes the model better on generalized problems. While in case of DeepSeek's simpler RL, it is more focused, more efficient, but more narrow in nature as well. It is less complex, and the best part is it is more cost effective also. So now, depending upon your use case, you can go with RLHF or you can go with simpler RL as mentioned in DeepSeek. Thank you so much.